it is Earth Day. And what does this mean to us here at Kindred? I just want you to bear with me for just a moment while I roll out this framing. People like to not listen to this part, but this part is really, really important because 50 years of human consciousness studies have shown that we are disconnected from nature, ourselves, and others, and the earth. And we are facing a meta crisis right now because of this disconnection. And our metacognitive skills are needed badly to bring back whole systems, insights, and relational skills. What do we call this? We call this our indigenous or kinship worldview at Kindred. We know that worldviews create worlds. Even recent United Nations and ecological research reports echo the need for a shift in worldview. So this is a mainstream acknowledged piece, even though you may just be hearing about it now, or you may just have discovered it on Kindred. So how do we get there through this shift? Tyson Yunkaporta, an Australian professor of Indigenous Studies, told us in a Kindred interview that the best way to access our Indigenous worldview is through poetry. So can you see where this is going? We're here on Earth Day to listen to Stephanie Mines read us her poetry. So Kindred World Publishing House is therefore delighted to present The Great Physician, Medicinal Poetry for the Anthropocene by Dr. Stephanie Mines. She is a neuroscientist, embryologist, healer, and award-winning poet. What you are going to hear today is Stephanie's autobiographical experiences of looking deeply into the roots of our metacrisis, the roots of our inner climate, and its connection to our potential to heal our outer climate. Stephanie's first reading today is her poem, Beyond Traumatic Repetition. So I'd like to invite you now to take a deep breath. Let's arrive in our bodies. Maybe if you could put your feet on the floor and feel a little grounded, feel your sit bones in your seat or wherever you are. Take a deep breath and arrive with me in this space as we listen to the amazing wisdom teaching Stephanie is going to share with us, with, as she calls it, her fusion of so many transdisciplinary fields, and they are beautifully represented in this poetry collection. So thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Kindred. I really want to underscore how two women, Elisa and I, are collaborating and suggest that this collaboration is in fact part of the paradigm shift that I espouse and that is needed at this time. Women, particularly crones, let me say that word. I know some of my dear friends don't like the word crone, and I'm going to encourage you to get used to it. And I want the gentlemen in the audience to embrace that word themselves and make space. Make space, please, to just listen to women. This is an extremely important moment for me personally, and I want to thank Lisa and Kindred for making it possible. I have the joy in this moment to simply be in my poet self. I am a scientist, I am a clinician, I am a theoretician, I am the author of clinical books. But first and foremost, I am a poet. And poetry is the essence of what I call my original brilliance. My theoretical approach is about accessing original brilliance by understanding embryonic unfolding and prenatal life in a way that is hidden and obscured, unfortunately, by a largely patriarchal takeover of the birthing process. So I reverse that. My revolutionary approach is fundamentally a poetic one. And this is what has taken me beyond the excruciating trauma that shaped my early development, but did not shape it as much as my original brilliance. Beyond traumatic repetition, a shadow hangs over the world and it seeps into my bones. A shadow hangs over the world and it seeps into my bones. It twists my structure until I am bent in prayer, a supplicant. What more can I do to take off this burden? Whether innovator, migrant, outlaw, or rogue, whether scientist, artist, mystic, or visionary, whether mother, grandmother, sister, or daughter, whether wife, colleague, ally, or enemy, in whatever form I take, in whatever form I take, I differentiate. Side note, dear friends, differentiation is the nature of embryonic unfolding. My message is to remember how you differentiate. In whatever form I take, I differentiate. I shake off the curse of traumatic repetition. By my very being, I shake off the curse of traumatic repetition. Every poem, every paradigm, every protocol, every book, every essay, every response to you in an email is all a ceremony of redemption. Everything I do, this very moment with you, is a ceremony of redemption. I shake off the curse of traumatic repetition. It is over. It is over. It is over. The bridge has been built between all the worlds. The bridge has been built between all the worlds. We are one. Hands on heart. Tears rising. I write so that you will write. I write so that you will speak. I want to honor Pam Leo here. Pam Leo is part of the Kindred community. I want all of you to become part of the Kindred community. It's a remarkable community. And I want to honor Pam Leo because she stands up for libraries. And that's where traumatic repetition ended for me, was in libraries. And Pam Leo knows this. She's the advocate of reading and literacy in a time that wants us not to do that. And it is not an old story that it was in libraries that I ended traumatic repetition. Libraries became my home. I want to honor Darsha Narvaz, who is also here with us, who developed the Evolved Nest, which is a Kindred program, and libraries fulfilled every definition of the Evolved Nest and saved my life, literally. I come from a background of severe violence, shock, and I declare for all of you, as well as for myself, in this moment, now it is over. and we are all vehicles of peace. It's interesting to me, as I have bookmarked Beyond Traumatic Repetition, that the poem right next to it is called The Black Madonna. And I'm going to interject that poem because Earth Day is the Day of the Mother. And I want to honor how Kindred has sustained in its decades of existence the honoring of the mother. This is a time when the erasure of women is a thing. And we must counter that with our loving assertion of the crone voice. I am adamant in evoking the crone voice in all of you, including men. Mother of the lost tribe, Madonna of the magnetic earth, Madonna of the lonely wanderer, Madonna of the empty-handed, Madonna of the abandoned child, Madonna of the sacred wound, Madonna in the palms of my pleading hands, Madonna of my father's sin, Madonna of the mystery, Madonna of the unspoken, Mother of the people, Mother who sees our oneness, Mother who is our shelter, Mother of the temple of truth, Mother who grants us freedom, Mother who lives with her child blooming from her chest. Breathe in the mother, please. The true mother. Let fly all your complaints, all your disillusionment and disappointment about any other mother. And breathe in the true mother. As she is who is guiding us at this time of metacrisis. This is a poem that Lisa particularly likes and refers to, The Texture of Oppression. In the bodies of the women who come to me for healing, I feel the texture of oppression. Strings of coagulated holding back in musculature, poison pellets of self-rejection inserted deeply into connective tissue. Taut tendons entwine bone like strangulation vines emitting venomous inflammation. I touch the ectoderm of centuries of agony, the mesoderm of shock, and the braced membranes of endoderm, defiant and impenetrable. Fluids meant to flow are backed up, filling avenues of expression with sediment, making their pathways of refusal. Latched back down in the heart, longing to swing open to the front, to release the pent-up spontaneity that has been damned. I call that forth. The time has come, my sisters. The time has come now, my sisters, and my brothers are included as my sisters. The time has come now, my sisters, to disbar the court that silences us from within. The time has come to detoxify the texture of oppression. Detoxify the texture of oppression, my sisters, from your flesh, from our flesh, from our one flesh. Detoxify the poison of oppression and come in to your fullness. We can do this. We can irrigate with rivulets of permission, with waves of validation and recognition. That's what Lisa does for me. That is this partnership between me and Lisa, between me and Kindred, between me and Pam Leo and Darcia Narvaz. This is the way forward. Women supporting women and men validating that. We can irrigate with rivulets of permission, with waves of validation and recognition, the brine of wisdom that is the song, the poem, the art of the crone. Please listen to the art of the crone, invoke her, supplicate her, she who dwells in our wombs, she who knows how we give birth to ourselves, she who knows how we give birth to ourselves. When I write these poems, or when these poems write me, a healing process is invoked within me. And I say this as someone who has studied healing in astounding detail, the healing process of the nervous system, the mind-body connection, how the brain develops in response to the environment. I say this as someone who has a passionate, nonstop curiosity about the healing process. So when I write these poems, I know now, I observe it, that healing is taking place within me. And I am not saying this metaphorically. This is why I encourage you to write. This is why I want you to articulate. I know it's a challenge. I know it can be difficult. But what I want to share with you from my direct experience is that when I write, there is a cellular, energetic, biophysical event occurring within me that remakes me. Every word that I write, every sentence that forms itself, even the ones that I erase, even the ones that I discard, I am being remade. This is how I have ended traumatic repetition. It's largely through writing. Of course, I've studied deeply, intensively, and most of the time under very adverse circumstances. I'm the queen, I think, of adverse circumstances and keeping going anyway. But the writing of what it was I was studying, the synthesis of my intense reading experience, that articulation of what I synthesize, and that frequently includes my biological participation, and that gets translated into language, that is medicine, real medicine, with no side effects, and available to you anywhere, anytime. And I make these statements in the midst of this poetry reading because this is what I write for and to. I write for you. I write out of my passionate attachment. I've been talking with Lisa about attachment and bonding, and I'm reframing that. And she has encouraged me to write about that, and I will. I'm so grateful to Lisa for making that request, just as I'm grateful to her for asking me to compile this book. So I'm redefining attachment and liberating myself from the sense that I was in any way poorly attached as a result of the fact that I was raised by people to whom nobody would want to attach. But does that mean that I was insecurely attached or reactively attached? Actually, no. I believed that for a long time. This is another way of ending traumatic repetition. I was profoundly securely attached to libraries, to librarians, to books, to words, to language, to curiosity from a very early age. And I was able to self-regulate through that attachment. So I am going to formulate that so that it has some clinical status. Because when I have shared this with other students, which I did recently in Aotearoa, people left that workshop high as a kite, you know, no psychedelics involved, high as a kite because of the paradigm shift that happened in their neurobiology. So take a bit of a pause here. Perhaps somebody wants to comment. Cheryl is saying, I am securely attached to rivers, grass, and lightning bugs. Yes. Cheryl, thank you. So glad you're here. Me too, says Lisa. Yeah.
You know, I want to say, I just want to add that writing for me and being in that place of undissolved welcoming inside, you know, because you're like waiting for the words. It's like you give yourself a chance to be rewritten, right? So it's so beautiful, just like what you said, by allowing the words to form, even to see yourself more clearly and to admit even to your pain, you know, you can alchemize it. So thank you. It's a very beautiful presentation.
Well said, Barbara. Well said. And I am so glad that you're mirroring what I am now really starting to track more specifically as a scientist. I've been doing this since I was, I think, 5 or 7 years old, and probably even sooner. I did it before I could write or read, obviously, but I was doing it internally. And I think this is true of many people. And many of us learned not to articulate this because it would be seen as crazy or it would be shut up in some way. That is over also. That is over. And what better way to attach and bond than to the natural world? And this is indigenous wisdom, and we all have it. So many of you know that I am in the process of writing the biography of an esteemed rangatira, Matawhari Hoka, who is the matriarch of the epic Parihaka Marae in New Zealand, in Taranaki. It is an astounding privilege that she has asked me to write her biography. And in that process, I have spent significant amounts of time with Mata and her family, her whānau, her tamariki, her children, on the marae. So Parihaka Marae, let me just say, so that you can be aware of this incredible place that most people don't know anything about. Oh, Parihaka Marae is the birthplace of nonviolence, preceding Gandhi, and the spokespeople of Parihaka at that time, when British colonists were conducting their rapacious land grab, Tuwiti Orangamai and Tohu Kahi, they created an approach to what was going to be a devastating invasion that was absolutely strategically brilliant. Though it may have appeared to fail, it actually did not. So knowing that the soldiers with their guns and their horses and their cannons, which the Maori had none of, they had some muskets, but nothing like what the colonists brought with them. And Tuwiti instructed everyone at Parihaka Marae, which now represented thousands of people because everyone had flocked to Parihaka as a sanctuary. And he instructed them to create a feast, to welcome the invading forces into their homes. And food was prepared. Women stayed up baking bread. Children were in the front of the marae, singing and dancing. And when the colonists arrived, they were met by a festival of welcoming, and no one resisted them. And while this was devastating, women were raped, children were massacred, very much like what is going on elsewhere in the world now. The Maori ultimately triumphed. In the end, they are still triumphing. They are still regaining their dignity, restoring their language. And that's what Mata Wharihoka represents, because she is a leader of that cultural restoration at Parihaka. And this is a message to the world, and it's a message I'm trying to deliver. I think it's my most challenging writing assignment I've ever had. But I have been assigned it, and therefore I will do it. God help me, and God is helping me. But I will do it because this is the message the world needs to hear, the message of Parihaka, the message of peace. And you are all part of that message of peace. And today, Earth Day, in the name of the Mother, commit yourself to the message of peace. Lisa, maybe you could read some of the comments in the chat. I'm not able to focus on them at the moment. I'm so focused on everyone who's here.
Let's see. Well, there's a lovely peace sign. There's "We are here, I hear you." Ceremony of redemption. And then people are agreeing with the attachment. We're attaching to trust and love, our animals, our pets, our books, our stories. And, you know, I have a question, a follow-up question, Stephanie. At Kindred, we keep saying we're trying to tell this new story. We know we need new language to tell a new story because this is how we communicate. Well, you know, in our left brain anyway. And your phrase, original brilliance, seems to provide an insight and understanding to how are we connected to life. So when we develop the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and we look again at what's happening in the world, we can actually see where is life showing up and align ourselves accordingly. But there's something in that phrase, original brilliance, and the way you describe it and bring it out in your work and in your poem, in your poetry as well, that speaks to that alignment is innate. It's there. And so it's almost pointing to the disconnect as being false.
Beautiful. question. Lisa always asks beautiful questions. She is listening so deeply, and I love that in our relationship. Original brilliance is the embryonic intelligence that each one of you accessed as you navigated the Odyssean complex territory of your manifestation. Regardless of the external circumstances, which are, of course, utterly unique to each individual, there was enormous complexity in that process of finding your way to birth. Regardless of any of the circumstances or any of the interventions used, you, in your embryonic intelligence, navigated frequently difficult structural obstacles, almost always the difficult structural obstacle of the iliacal sacral promontory that juts out in every woman's body. Now, there's a variety, of course, of pelvic structures, but every one of them has that promontory, and you had to navigate it. The strategies you invoked for navigating all of the obstacles you encountered, including possibly being overwhelmed by anesthesia. Anesthesia is used, of course, under some circumstances. I am not in any way casting aspersion on medical practices. I do believe they are colonized and don't have to be used to the extent that they are used. I applaud them for their life-saving capacities. But anesthesia is administered according to the weight of the mother. And the baby is inevitably then utterly and completely overwhelmed by that. And the baby, you, the embryo, the emerging being, has to figure out how to deal with that. It might happen, for instance, at a moment when you are entangled in the umbilical cord and can barely breathe. That's just a possible example. It could happen when your shoulder is hooked around one of the geological structures of your mother's pelvis. And to be made passive at such a juncture feels and is life-threatening. But all of you who are here surmounted that. There is no challenge equal to that in our current world. Even in the meta crisis that we're in, those challenges of this time are minimal compared to what you experienced in your Odyssean journey here. If only we could remember our original brilliance, what brought us through that difficult, life-threatening passage to where we are now, and then how we differentiate, my favorite word, the past from the present. That is the liberation that leads to the reclamation of original brilliance. And we do that with this intergenerational array behind us, the lineage, what in Soreo Maori they call tupuna. We always ask the tupuna, the ancestors. They are the ones who are informing us and guiding us. And they are with us as we engage in this odyssey of selfhood. I want to honor my ancestors. This poem in The Great Physician, which I hope you will buy and keep with you as a source of inspiration and information. So I want to introduce you to my family. Seti, Lona, Faggy, Pearl, Minnie, Julie, Rose, lined up Savosen. Savosen is a Yiddish word. It means head to toe. It's in the poem. Seti, Lona, Faggy, Pearl, Minnie, Julie, Rose, lined up, Savosen, head to toe in the narrow beds. Grandpa, staying up to put bricks hot from the stove that he wrapped in rags into each bed under each pair of small feet. The heat rose. Grandma sang. As you go from Zera Sopel on your way to Simferopol, just you go a little further on, there's a little railroad depot known quite well by all the people called Jankoya John, John, John. I've translated it for you from the Yiddish. Bube singing, her voice quaking in the old way that was called beautiful, the words cracking like eggshells, no music, just the plaintive song of going forward, the white puffs of her voice visible in the black frozen night, the Bronx apartment behind the failing candy store. 1933 is the year Papa became known as sick. Papa couldn't find a way to help Fligelach, the little wing, because she was so thin that she was brittle, like the wishbone from the chicken Bubby cooked. She left the feathers plucked in a pile to stuff pillows, and she saved the bones and the guts for the soup that they were all dreaming about in that night. So that's my lineage. That's my family, peasants from Eastern Europe, almost starving to death in a cold apartment in the Bronx. And they are with me. They are listening to me. And I invoke their wisdom that has accrued over all these decades to a time of such pain in the world. We can make a difference. I would say it is our legacy, each one of us, no matter what your background, it's your legacy to use that ancestry. The Yiddish word would be koyach, the strength of your, let me mix cultures, because I do, the koyach of your tapuna, the strength, the guts of your ancestors to help fuel your confidence that no matter what, you have a contribution to make, a significant contribution at this time. My poetry is not only medicine, it is outreach. It is my love letter to the world. And I write it with the intention of being understood. So I don't want really to write a highly intellectual academic poetry. That does not inspire me. Academia does not inspire me, to tell you the truth. I want to write, thank you. I want to write to you. I just wrote a Substack, I think it was yesterday, the days run into each other when you're a writer, about wanting to write for the mothers who are taking care of their neurodiverse children while they are trying to earn a living and keep the house clean. Those are the women whose voices I want to hear. I want to write to the single mothers and the single dads who are doing everything they can to raise healthy, well-attached children in a world that is falling apart. How do you do that? Well, one way that you do it is you speak to it. And if enough of us speak to this, and Kindred is a vehicle for that speaking, if enough of us speak to it, it can create a groundswell. I believe in that. Love to hear more from you all. Let me know if you'd like me to read more poems or.
Somebody had a question. River Moon asked, can you speak to the possible effects of C-sections and the particular challenges they present to our odysseys of differentiation?
Yeah, of course, this is a topic that I cover in detail in my programs, and everyone is invited to look at those programs. I do have a regenerative health for a climate changing world program in process now. It is an MA PhD program through Ubiquity University, but it also can be attended by anyone. And I address these topics in detail, but I will say briefly that C-section is its own challenge. So it is frequently the challenge of obfuscating or silencing one's initiative. So like, for instance, forceps delivery or suction delivery, the initiative of the developing being is stolen from them. And there are consequences developmentally for that. The important focus is embryonic intelligence. So how that individual being, who is informed utterly by somatic intelligence. So let me emphasize this. Original brilliance is somatic. If you look for it with your brain, you're gonna be chasing a cat's tail, you know? Original brilliance is somatic. You found it through your sensory systems. And that's the area that I've invested a lot of time and research in and did clinical trials in, which is sensory development. So your sensory development is what found the solution to that victimization, that experience of the suppression of your initiative, your action. So it's experienced somatically, like you want to make a certain movement and you can't because you're anesthetized or you're trapped or you're being forced in another direction. These themes repeat in life, but you found a unique solution to that predicament. And that's the identification that I support people in making so that they can uncover and differentiate the past from the present and live in the original brilliance. So friends, look at where we are right now in the world. No matter how much people may try to deny it and distract themselves from it, we are facing the life threat to all of humanity. Mother Earth will survive. She is not daunted. She suffers, but she is not daunted. It is humans that will be destroyed. This is a replication of the victimization of colonization. So think of Tuwiti Orangamai and Mata Farihoka. Our indigenous wisdom holders know the way, and they are transmitting it to us. I believe that's why I was asked by people I deeply respect and who I'm humbled by to write the story of Mata Farihoka and Parihaka. Think of Tuwiti Orangamai, who created a celebration. What is that celebration that we can create in the face of the way in which patriarchy and the industrialization and extractionism of a small percentage of people in this world are attempting to destroy us and are ruthless in continuing to do that. There's been no change whatsoever in carbon emissions. Nothing that anybody has done, no poem that I have written has changed the course of extinction. We are in the sixth extinction. What is the festival that we can create to meet this onslaught of horror that is happening, has been happening already? We are safe in our homes, but at this moment, that destruction is occurring and has been occurring for decades in many parts of the world. You know this. What is the festival that we can create? It is the festival of our original brilliance, our innate indigenous creativity. Step beyond those historical, suppressive, colonized attempts to dominate and eradicate a groundswell of original brilliance. It's happened before, we can do it again.
Courtney, do you want to ask your question if you're here? And then Kristen.
Sure. Of course, I think you're already speaking to this and I've heard you speak on it, but I just find it so interesting, the connection between the colonization of birth and the climate crisis, and exploring how our reconnection with, the natural unfolding of biological birth and reconnection to our original brilliance contributes to planetary healing.
Thank you. And Courtney is speaking to us on her due date. She is about to deliver. Her baby is due right now.
Yeah, she's due today, but I'm cleaning the bathroom and eating an egg sandwich. So she's not here
That's
yet.
a sign that she's coming soon.
Yes, thank you.
I think it's interesting that it's an egg sandwich, Courtney.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to say in response to your question, and of course, this is an area that I have worked in for decades, the empowerment of the mother-baby bond. And I had both my children at home and was part of that first wave in the 70s of restoring the indigenous response of women to their birthing experience. And what does that have to do with facing our meta crisis? First of all, it is recognizing the power of women to bring forth life. And that has been not only minimized, it has been disregarded, and it has been taken over by industry in so many ways. And women have gone along with that. And I don't say that to criticize them. I see it as part of the texture of oppression. So you are having your baby at home, Courtney, and my prayers are with you and have been all along that this will be a smooth and beautiful process, as it was for me. I'm very grateful for the assistance that comes when that is not a smooth and beautiful process and has complications, which does happen. And I am very grateful for allopathy, for how it addresses those circumstances and saves lives. But when we put women at the center of the birthing process, and those women know how to listen to the messages of their arriving baby because they have been educated about the primacy of that dyad, that they are knowledgeable about how they have linked with their baby in the production of the placenta, and the mother knows that that placenta was initiated by the baby, and the mother knows that the birthing process is initiated by the baby. And so the mother supplicates herself to the baby's directive, and that then moves through her. That becomes the initiatory experience of birth as women's empowerment and the welcoming of the children of the future so that they fully inhabit their original brilliance and are not discouraged from expressing it and being it, and they are validated and welcomed as original brilliance. So I believe that when we hold that awareness and we begin that education, that will lead to a future that we want to inhabit. And I do believe it is important for us to see that future that we want to inhabit. And that we are, I believe this particularly about the Crone Initiation, which is a poem I would like to read that I just wrote the other day. We are seers, we are prophets. Mata Farihoka is a prophet. That's why her story must be told. She prophesied many things in healthcare. She's a public health nurse, that's her training. And she transformed, in some areas, healthcare in New Zealand for Maori women. We are seers, we are prophets, but we have to cultivate those prophetic qualities. And we can only do that when we articulate ourselves, and then when that articulation is mirrored. That combination of articulation and mirroring empowers us to step courageously over the threshold of this time. I hope that answers your question, Courtney.
Stephanie, we're nearing the end of our time, but we do have one more question from Kristen. Do you want to ask your question? Kristen, do you want me to read it? I think you're here. You want to ask your question, and then Stephanie can take us out with whatever she'd like to take us out on the third day.
Sure, I'm here. And my question is coming from a perspective of, I'm old enough to be a crone, so we'll start there. I'm coming back to writing and to poetry and working to find that voice that you're talking about. But for me, first of all, I feel this great need, let me say it that, to heal myself before I can reach out. Right? So many of us write quietly. And so my question ends up being how we come out of silence.
How beautiful. Thank you, Kristen. And all my programs are dedicated to this. So I will welcome you into my programs, and my books elucidate this, but for a one-on-one experience, which I think is what you want and what feels really good, I invite you. I live for this.
Okay.
And I have multiple tools for this, including somatic tools. And maybe that's how we'll come to closure here, rather than me reading my new poem, which you can all read on my Substack. So
Wait, we have one more, Stephanie, from
okay.
River. I'm sorry, she's been patient with her hand up over there.
That's
and
okay.
Thank you for sharing the timely photo of Madonna when you held that up during Stephanie's reading of the Black Madonna. That was just beautiful and moving. Thank you, River. What is your question?
Oh, actually, I think Stephanie answered it a little bit. I have so many questions and so many pieces that want to come together. And what are the best ways to continue this dialogue and this learning that we're having today? Stephanie, you mentioned classes with you. You've mentioned joining Kindred.
I'm going to send everyone a follow-up email, River, that will have a lot of links and resources in it for where you can find Stephanie. So you'll get one, and if that's helpful, and I'll also include email for both of us. But continue. Go ahead.
Well, that was the main thing. I just the last couple of days have just been this. I can't think of a word. Just this, an embryonic development of concepts and ideas uh, and visions for a new earth. And I just yeah, that's, I have no idea how ultimately it will manifest yet, but I know I want to be part of that.
Wonderful. And I can see, River, you're in that embryonic space. That's why you're having trouble finding the words, because that embryonic, brilliant, visionary place is precognitive. And that's why you're looking for your language. I think follow through with me. Lisa will be providing you with ways to contact me. And I'm happy to support you in finding that language and manifesting your vision, because we are visionaries. The poem that I was going to read about initiation into cronehood will be on my Substack, and you can find that Substack easily. It's called Crone Speak. I encourage you to subscribe to it. You can be a free subscriber or a paid subscriber. And just to say that when you buy the book, when you become a paid subscriber, you are supporting everything that I do. This is not money that is pocketed personally. It all goes to the nonprofit outreach of Kindred and Climate Change and Consciousness and the Tara approach, which I created for the resolution of shock and trauma, which is the more clinical and somatic aspect of how I provide resources for you. And I'm going to give you some of that somatic experience right now so that we close with a way to tap into being grounded, embodied, and visionary at the same time, which is necessary in order to manifest what women have accumulated, because we are comprehensive and holistic and ubiquitous in the way that we synthesize our experience. So finding the language that reaches to others is a somatic process. It has to be. Just talking about it will not get you anywhere. It has to be embodied. So I'm going to share a short embodied experience with you. I'm actually doing it all the time. It looks like I'm praying, which I am, but it is also a way of bringing together all the bioelectrical fields of your etheric body. So we can use this as a starter. Just bring the palms of your hands into contact with each other. Slight pressure, not much, but enough so that the actual segments of the fingers are touching each other. And then bring that to the throat level. This is called an inju in another indigenous system that I was blessed to receive, the art of compassion, transmitted to me by Mary Eno Burmeister. The story of that is in my book, The Secret of Resilience. It is the key to resilience on the somatic level. When you place this inju at the throat level, you are benefiting your thyroid, but you are also empowering your voice. The translation of this inju or mudra is I am the divine presence in the honorific center of the universe. Feel how you are coming together as a result of holding this inju. And then when you're ready, I'm going to ask you to bring your fingertips onto your chest. And let's do this together. First, find the base of your collarbone, which is also a site, but we're headed in the direction of another site. So slip down between the ribs, right under the collarbone. There's a little interstitial sort of cartilaginous space. And then another rib, and slip down again into the next cartilaginous space. And then between the third and fourth ribs on your chest, rest your hands. You could also rest your palms. This site is called the mother. It's the best site for Courtney to hold on her due date. This is the site that, like the Inju, brings you into the center of your being as mother. And that center as mother is fluid and integrating. This is a delicious site for your respiratory system. It allows you to breathe in the way you have always wanted to breathe, deeply receiving the breath of life. But it also evaporates the overwhelm of this world, and that overwhelm is big, and we must differentiate from it. We must differentiate from it. So this mother site, please feel it, and in your own time after this call, go back to it, and you will see a pulsation and feel a shift throughout your body. If you combine that with this Inju at the throat and the mother, you will be somatically preparing your body to voice your truth. There's much more where this comes from. That's what all my programs are about. And this is what keeps me going, friends. Thank you very much. What a beautiful way to launch the great physician. Medicinal poetry, my friends. Read it, imbibe it, write it.
Stephanie, I want to add I feel moved to share this little story. When my son was little, my mom she's Catholic, I'd let her take him to church. And when he was just barely old enough to talk, and he came home from church and he said to me, "Mom, I know what grandma's doing like this." I said, "Yeah, what?" He goes, "It's half of the heart. You're holding each half of your heart. And when you hold your hands together, your heart comes together." And he was only like 3. So anyway, I thought I'd pass that on. The innocent understanding of a child. He felt like once he put the hands together, he felt his heart become whole.
Original brilliance. Original brilliance. That's what we all must reclaim. That's exactly what your son embodied. We just need to remember that and have the freedom to say it. That's a poem. What a beautiful closure. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. You will be receiving follow-up email with resources and connections to all kinds of places to find all the great, cool things Stephanie's doing. And of course, she is on Kindred. She's also, I should say, our vice president. We're very fortunate today to have her with us. And Darsha is our president here with us. And Pam is also on our board. I can't see, let's see, who else is here? Well, somebody else was here, but they're gone now, but thank you.
Elisa Darsha was wiggling her fingers at you.
Oh, there she is. There she is. Hey, Darsha. Okay.
Thank you,
so much
fellow
for
board
coming,
members.
everyone. Yes, thank you all. Thank you so much. You're seeing the heart here of Kindred today. Thank you so much for coming. And Barbara, thank you so much for being providing our safety and support as always. So thank you, everyone, and we'll get this up for you, the recording, as soon as possible so you can enjoy it again.
Thank you, everyone. I feel you all.